A dying puppy hugs his young owner before being put down. But then, the vet notices something strange. Everyone thought this was just a heartbreaking goodbye. But the puppy's final hug wasn't a farewell. It was a warning. Moments before the injection, he growls. Not in fear, but at someone in the room. That's when the vet stops everything and finds something that shouldn't be there. What was done to this puppy? Why is someone so desperate to see him gone? And what dark secret is hiding beneath what was supposed to be one boy's worst day? What if this dog wasn't dying at all, but someone wanted him silenced? You being here is a reminder. The quiet acts of love and kindness still matter. If you hold space for compassion, you're already part of this community. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Central Park's grassy field as Tice tossed a worn tennis ball, watching Bristle bound after it with endless enthusiasm. The 10-year-old boy's laughter, rare since his mother's passing 6 months ago, echoed across the park. From a nearby bench, Mason Langford looked up from his phone, a small smile tugging at his weathered face. "Good boy, Bristle," Tice called out as the young German shepherd retrieved the ball, his tan and black coat gleaming in the sunlight. The puppy's tail wagged furiously as he dropped the slobbery ball at Tice's feet, ready for another round. Mason watched the pair with mixed emotions. The dog had been a desperate attempt to help his son through grief, and somehow the energetic puppy had succeeded where everything else had failed. Where there had been silence, Bristle brought conversation. Where there had been isolation, the dog brought connection. "Watch this, Dad," Tice yelled, winding up for another throw. Mason nodded, grateful to see his son's hazel eyes bright with joy instead of shadowed by loss. Bristle suddenly stopped mid-stride, his ears perking up. His nose twitched, and his body went rigid. A deep growl rumbled in his chest, a sound Mason had never heard from the usually gentle puppy. "Bristle," Tice's voice wavered with concern. The tennis ball dropped forgotten from his hand. The dog's attention was fixed on something across the park. Mason followed his gaze to see a man in a dark jacket walking along the path. There was nothing particularly remarkable about him, but Bristle's growl grew louder, more threatening. "Hey, what's wrong, boy?" Tice stepped toward his pet, but before he could reach him, Bristle let out a series of fierce barks. The sound was almost desperate, as if he were trying to warn them of something only he could sense. Then, as quickly as it began, the barking stopped. Bristle's legs trembled, and his eyes seemed to lose focus. The large puppy swayed on his feet. "Bristle?" Tice's voice cracked with fear. Mason was already moving when Bristle's legs gave out completely. The dog collapsed onto his side, his breathing shallow and labored. "Dad!" Tice's scream tore through the peaceful afternoon. "Something's wrong with Bristle!" Mason reached them in 3 long strides, his heart pounding. The dog's eyes were glazed, and his body felt too warm through his thick fur. "We need to get him to a vet. Now!" Tice was crying now, his thin shoulders shaking as Mason carefully lifted Bristle. The dog barely responded, his usual energy completely gone. "Is he going to die?" Tice's question was barely a whisper. "Not if I can help it, buddy." Mason tried to keep his voice steady as they hurried to their truck. "Dr. Renly's clinic is just 5 minutes away." The drive was tense, filled with Tice's quiet sobs and Bristle's labored breathing from the back seat. Mason kept glancing in the rearview mirror, watching his son cradle the dog's head in his lap, whispering prayers and promises. Dr. Elora Renly was finishing up with another patient when they burst through the clinic doors. One look at Bristle's condition, and she immediately cleared an exam room. "How long has he been like this?" she asked, her practiced hands moving efficiently over Bristle's body, while her dark eyes remained sharp and focused. "It just happened," Mason explained, keeping one hand on Tice's shoulder. "He was fine. Then he started barking at someone, and then—" He gestured helplessly at the examination table. Dr. Renly's fingers probed gently along Bristle's abdomen, causing the dog to whimper weakly. She frowned, her braids swaying as she shook her head. His organs appear to be showing signs of severe stress. I need to run some tests immediately. But what caused it? Tice's voice was small, his hands clutching Bristle's fur. He was okay just a few minutes ago. That's what we need to find out, Dr. Renly said gently, already preparing to draw blood. Sometimes these things can happen very suddenly, but I promise you we're going to do everything we can for him. The preliminary test results made Dr. Renly's expression grow even more serious. His organs are showing signs of rapid failure, she explained, her voice gentle but direct. It's extremely unusual for this to happen so suddenly, especially in a young, healthy dog. Tice pressed his face into Mason's side, his shoulders shaking with fresh sobs. Mason wrapped an arm around his son, feeling helpless as he watched Bristle struggle for each breath on the examination table. "What are our options?" Mason asked, dreading the answer, but needing to know. Dr. Renly's eyes narrowed slightly, something flickering behind her professional demeanor. "Let me run a few more specific tests before we discuss that. There's something about this that doesn't add up." Dr. Renly's gentle voice filled the sterile examination room. "I wish I had better news," she said, her dark eyes full of compassion as she looked at Mason and Tice. "The test results show severe organ dysfunction. His body is shutting down, and there's very little we can do to stop it." "No!" Tice's voice cracked. "There have to be more tests you can do. Please!" He clutched Bristle's fur, and the weakened dog managed to lift his head slightly, trying to lick Tice's hand. Dr. Renly shared a meaningful look with Mason before continuing. "We can run more tests, Tice, but they won't change what's happening. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, we can't fix everything." Mason's calloused hands gripped the edge of the examination table. The memory of another hospital room, another impossible decision, pressed heavily on his mind. He'd lost his wife 6 months ago, and now his son faced losing his best friend. "What about medicine?" Tice pleaded, his hazel eyes brimming with tears. "Or surgery? We can pay for it, right, Dad?" Mason swallowed hard. "Buddy," he began, but his voice failed him. "The kindest thing we can do now," Dr. Renly said softly, "is to prevent any suffering. I can make arrangements for tomorrow morning. It will be peaceful, I promise." Tice's face crumpled. "Dad, please, don't let them." He buried his face in Bristle's fur, his thin shoulders shaking with sobs. Mason felt torn in two. The practical part of him understood the vet's logic, but watching his son's heart break again was almost unbearable. "Doctor, are you absolutely certain?" "The test results are quite clear," she replied, though something flickered across her face, a shadow of doubt so brief Mason wasn't sure he'd seen it. "I can show you the numbers, but essentially, his organs are failing rapidly." Mason closed his eyes, remembering the day they'd brought Bristle home. It had been just 2 weeks after Sarah's funeral. The house had been so quiet, filled with the heavy silence of grief. Tice hadn't spoken more than a few words since losing his mother. Then they'd visited the shelter, and this gangly puppy with soulful eyes had pressed against the cage door, whining softly until Tice noticed him. It was the first time his son had smiled in weeks. Opening his eyes, Mason looked at Dr. Renly. "Okay," he said quietly. "Tomorrow morning." "Dad, no!" Tice's voice was desperate. "Please, just one more day. Please." "You can take him home tonight," Dr. Renly offered, already preparing a small bag of pain medication. "Make him comfortable. Spend time together. Bring him back at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning." The drive home was silent, except for Bristle's labored breathing and Tice's quiet sniffles. Mason helped carry the weakened dog into the house, settling him on his bed in Tice's room. "Can I sleep next to him tonight?" Tice asked, his voice small. Mason nodded, his throat tight. "Of course, buddy." As night fell, Mason stood in the doorway of Tice's room, watching his son curled up beside Bristle on the floor. The boy was talking softly to his dog, reminiscing about their time together. "Remember when you chased that squirrel all the way up the oak tree?" Tice whispered, stroking Bristle's head. "And when you found my homework after I left it in the backyard?" His voice caught. "You're the best dog ever, Bristle. I love you so much." Bristle's tail thumped weakly against the floor, his eyes fixed on Tice's face with unwavering devotion. Despite his obvious discomfort, the dog stayed alert, as if determined to comfort his boy until the very end. Meanwhile, across town in her dimly lit office, Dr. Renly sat at her desk, frowning at Bristle's test results spread before her. Something about the numbers didn't add up. The pattern of organ failure was unlike anything she'd seen in her 20 years of practice. She pulled out her medical references, comparing charts and data, unable to shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial. But what troubled her most was the speed of onset. Just hours ago, Bristle had been a healthy, energetic puppy. She'd seen countless cases of organ failure throughout her career, but never one that progressed so rapidly without a clear cause. She picked up another lab report, her brow furrowed in concentration. There was something here, just beyond her grasp, like a word on the tip of her tongue. But with euthanasia scheduled for 9 o'clock the next morning, time was running out to figure out what it might be. The morning arrived too quickly. At 8:45, Mason's truck pulled into the veterinary clinic's parking lot. Tice sat in the back seat with Bristle's head in his lap, his fingers trembling as they stroked the dog's thick fur. His eyes were red and puffy from a night spent crying. "It's time, buddy," Mason said softly, opening the back door. His own voice was rough with emotion. Tice didn't move. "Just 5 more minutes, Dad." "Please?" Mason checked his watch, his heart aching. "We can't keep Dr. Renly waiting, son." With painful slowness, Tice helped Bristle out of the truck. The large puppy seemed unsteady on his feet, but managed to walk into the clinic with Tice's support. The waiting room was empty except for a young vet assistant who gave them a sympathetic smile. Dr. Renly met them in the examination room, her lab coat crisp and her manner gentle. "Good morning," she said quietly. "How was he through the night?" "He stayed awake with me the whole time," Tice whispered, his voice catching. "He didn't want to sleep." The vet nodded, preparing her instruments on a small metal tray. The sight of the syringe made Tice's breath hitch. He wrapped his arms around Bristle's neck, burying his face in the dog's fur. "I'll give you a moment to say goodbye," Dr. Renly said, stepping back. The vet assistant moved forward to help position Bristle on the examination table. But as the assistant reached for him, Bristle's demeanor changed dramatically. A low, rumbling growl filled the room. Not the sound of a sick dog, but a warning that made everyone freeze. His eyes, which had been dull with illness, suddenly blazed with intensity as he stared at the assistant. "Bristle?" Tice said, surprised. He'd never heard his gentle dog make such a sound. Instead of lying down, Bristle wrapped his front legs around Tice's leg in an almost human-like embrace, refusing to let go. His eyes never left the assistant, who had taken several steps back. Dr. Renly paused, the syringe in her hand. In 15 years of practice, she'd never seen a reaction quite like this. Something about Bristle's behavior struck her as deliberate, almost purposeful. "Wait," she said, setting down the syringe. "Something's not right here." Mason stepped forward, concerned. "What do you mean?" "His behavior." Dr. Renly moved closer, studying Bristle carefully. The dog was still clinging to Tice, but allowed her to approach. "This doesn't match his symptoms. A dog with organ failure this severe shouldn't have the strength for this kind of response." She gently examined Bristle, her experienced hands moving methodically over his body. When she reached behind his right ear, she paused. "Hold on." Parting the thick fur, she leaned in closer. "There's something here." Tice wiped his eyes. "What is it?" "A puncture mark," Dr. Renly said, her voice tightening. "Very small, very precise. And it wasn't made by any needle in my clinic." The assistant shifted uncomfortably near the door. Bristle's growl deepened. "Someone injected him with something," Dr. Renly said, straightening up. Her dark eyes were sharp with sudden understanding. This isn't a natural illness. Someone did this to him. Mason's face darkened. Are you saying someone poisoned our dog? I believe so, Dr. Renly replied. And judging by Bristle's reaction, she turned toward the assistant, who was now reaching for the door handle. He seems to know exactly who did it. The room fell silent except for Bristle's continuous growl. The assistant's hand froze on the door handle, and for a moment nobody moved. The truth of what was happening seemed to crash over everyone at once, brought to light by the protective instincts of a dog who, even in his weakened state, refused to let harm come to his boy. Dr. Renly's voice cut through the tension. Don't move, she said to the assistant, already reaching for the phone. I'm calling the police. The police arrived within 15 minutes, securing the clinic and detaining the assistant for questioning. During this time, Dr. Renly wasted no time starting a new round of emergency blood tests on Bristle, who remained protectively close to Tice. I need to find out exactly what we're dealing with, she explained, drawing blood from Bristle's leg with practiced care. The dog barely flinched, his eyes still tracking every movement in the room. These results should tell us what's really causing his symptoms. Mason paced the examination room, running his hands through his salt and pepper hair. I can't believe this is happening. Who would want to hurt a puppy? Dad, Tice spoke up, his voice small but steady. Remember yesterday at the park, before Bristle got sick? Mason turned to his son. What about it? There was that man, the one Bristle kept barking at. Tice's fingers twisted in Bristle's fur as he spoke. He said he was a dog trainer, but Bristle didn't like him at all. Dr. Renly looked up sharply from her microscope. Tell me everything about this man, Tice. Every detail you can remember. Tice's face scrunched in concentration. He was tall and wearing a blue jacket. He came over and said Bristle needed training because he was too aggressive. But Bristle's never aggressive. He just wouldn't stop growling at the man. The guy got pretty angry, Mason added, the memory becoming clearer. Said something about dogs needing to know their place. I thought he was just one of those know-it-all types. Then what happened? Dr. Renly pressed, her dark eyes intense. He tried to get Bristle to submit. You know, to lie down and show his belly. Tice's voice grew stronger as he recalled the events. But Bristle wouldn't do it. He just kept growling and staying between me and the man. That made the trainer really mad. He stormed off, but he kept looking back at us. Dr. Renly's computer beeped, signaling the blood analysis was complete. She studied the results, her expression growing increasingly troubled. Just as I suspected, she muttered, typing rapidly. This is no natural illness. She turned the screen so Mason could see it. See this compound here? It's designed to mimic the symptoms of organ failure, but it's synthetic. Someone carefully calculated this dose, enough to make Bristle appear terminally ill without actually killing him. Mason's face paled. But why? Because they're testing something, Dr. Renly said grimly. She pulled out a thick file from her desk drawer. 3 months ago, I reported several suspicious cases to the police. Dogs brought in with similar symptoms, all recommended for euthanasia. But before I could run more tests, they disappeared, along with their owners. She spread out several photographs showing different dogs, all displaying symptoms similar to Bristle's. I believed someone was targeting specific dogs, but I couldn't prove it. The police dismissed it as coincidence. Tice hugged Bristle tighter. But why would anyone want to hurt dogs? That's what we need to find out. Dr. Renly began preparing an injection. This is the antidote to counteract the poison. Bristle should start feeling better within hours. She smiled at Tice. Your dog's instincts probably saved more than just his own life today. As she administered the antidote, Mason asked, What do we do now? Now, Dr. Renly said, her voice firm with determination, we gather evidence. The police will question the assistant, but I suspect he's just a small part of something bigger. That man in the park, the so-called trainer, he's the one we need to find. She turned to Tice, her expression gentle but serious. Your dog showed remarkable courage, Tice. He knew something was wrong and refused to back down, even when it put him in danger. Now it's our turn to be as brave as Bristle. Bristle's tail wagged weakly at the sound of his name, and for the first time since yesterday, Tice managed a small smile. Dr. Renly patted the dog's head, her resolve strengthening. Too many animals had suffered already. She wouldn't let this case go unsolved like the others. "I'm calling in every favor I have," she declared, reaching for her phone. "We're going to find out who's behind this, and we're going to stop them. No more dogs will be hurt on my watch." The antidote slowly dripped through Bristle's IV as Dr. Renly made her calls, Tice never leaving his dog's side. Mason watched them both, his worry now mixed with determination. Whatever was going on, they would face it together, just as they had faced everything else since losing Tice's mother. The morning sun cast long shadows across the empty park as Mason and Tice retraced their steps from 2 days ago. Bristle walked between them, his strength returning, thanks to Dr. Renly's antidote. The park felt different now, less innocent, more threatening. "It was right here," Tice said, pointing to a spot near the playground. "This is where Bristle first started barking at him." Mason nodded, scanning the area. The weekday morning meant fewer people around, making it easier to focus on details they might have missed before. A woman jogged past them, her ponytail swinging rhythmically. "Excuse me," Mason called out, making a split-second decision. The jogger slowed, pulling out her earbuds. "Sorry to bother you, but we're trying to identify someone who was here the other day. A tall man, professional-looking, who said he was a dog trainer." The jogger's expression changed. "Blonde hair? Always wearing expensive workout clothes?" "Yes," Tice exclaimed, "and he got really mad when our dog wouldn't listen to him." "That sounds like Spencer DeLange," she said, frowning. "He runs a training facility on the east side of town. Lots of wealthy clients, but—" She glanced around before lowering her voice. "There are rumors about him. Some people say he's involved in less legitimate activities." Mason thanked her, watching as she continued her run. He pulled out his phone and called Dr. Renly immediately. "Spencer DeLange," Mason said when she answered. "Does that name mean anything to you?" There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Come to the clinic. Now." 20 minutes later, they sat in Dr. Renly's office while she pulled files from her cabinet. Bristle lay at Tice's feet, alert but calm. "Spencer DeLange," Dr. Renly said, spreading several documents across her desk. "I filed 3 separate complaints about him last year. All dismissed." She pointed to photographs of injured dogs. These animals came from homes near his facility. All showed signs of abuse, but nothing could be proven. "But why would anyone hurt dogs on purpose?" Tice asked, his hand protectively on Bristle's head. Dr. Renly hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes, Tice, bad people use dogs for illegal fighting. They make money from it." She turned to Mason. "I've been doing more research since yesterday. There's a breeder connected to DeLange who lost several puppies 6 months ago. They were stolen." Mason's face paled. "When we adopted Bristle, the rescue said he was found wandering near the highway," Dr. Renly confirmed. "But look at his build, his temperament. He's exactly the type they look for in fighting dogs. I think he was one of those stolen puppies." Tice hugged Bristle tighter. "But Bristle would never fight. He's gentle." "That's probably why they tried to get rid of him," Dr. Renly explained gently. "If a dog won't fight, they become a liability. But instead of just letting him go, they're trying to eliminate any evidence of their operation." Mason stood up, pacing the small office. "This is bigger than we thought. These people are dangerous." He ran his hands through his hair. "Maybe we should just move, start fresh somewhere else." "No," Tice protested. "We can't let them hurt more dogs. Bristle was trying to tell us something was wrong. We have to help." Dr. Renly nodded. "Tice is right. DeLange has been operating unchecked for too long, but we need proof." She pulled up something on her computer. "Look at this. Every dog that disappeared had similar characteristics to Bristle. Same age range, same build. It's a pattern. She turned to Mason. I understand your concern for safety, but if we don't stop this now, more families, more dogs will be hurt. Mason looked at his son, seeing the determination in his eyes. It reminded him of his late wife's unwavering sense of justice. What do you suggest we do? I have contacts in animal welfare, Dr. Renly said. People who've been building a case against operations like this. With Bristle's blood work showing the poison and our eyewitness identification of DeLange, we might finally have enough to get law enforcement to take this seriously. Tice sat up straighter. Bristle recognized him. That's why he wouldn't back down. He remembered DeLange from before. Dr. Renly smiled. Your dog is very smart, Tice, and very brave. She gathered the files together. But we need to be careful. These people have money and influence. They've managed to stay hidden for a reason. Mason sank back into his chair, the weight of the situation settling over him. He watched as Bristle gently nuzzled Tice's hand, the bond between them obvious and unshakable. His son had already lost so much. He couldn't bear the thought of him losing Bristle too. But running away wouldn't solve anything. Okay, he said finally. What's our next step? Dr. Renly sat at her desk, phone pressed to her ear, frustration etched across her face. Yes, I understand protocol, but these complaints were never properly investigated. She shuffled through papers, her voice growing tenser. We have new evidence now. A poisoned dog, an eyewitness. She fell silent, listening, then slammed the phone down with unusual force. Mason looked up from where he sat with Bristle in the waiting room. No luck. They say there's not enough evidence for a formal investigation. She rubbed her temples. Just like last time, DeLange has friends in high places. Tice, who had been quietly petting Bristle, stood up. But that's not fair. They're not even trying. I know, sweetheart, Dr. Renly said softly. Sometimes the system moves too slowly. Tice stormed out of the room, letting the door bang behind him. Mason started to follow, but Dr. Renly touched his arm. Give him a minute. He's had a rough few days. Outside, Tice kicked at the gravel in the parking lot. His mom would have known what to do. She always said if something was wrong, you had to stand up and say something. The adults weren't doing anything. They were just talking and making phone calls that went nowhere. He pulled out his phone and looked up DeLange's training facility. It wasn't far, just 15 minutes by bike. Before he could think better of it, Tice was pedaling down the street, anger and determination pushing him forward. The training facility sat at the edge of an industrial lot, chain-link fence surrounding a concrete yard. Tice spotted Spencer DeLange immediately, leading a German shepherd much bigger than Bristle through some drills. Hey, Tice called out, dropping his bike. I know what you did to Bristle. Spencer turned slowly, his polished smile never wavering. Well, if it isn't the little boy from the park. He dismissed his client with a wave, walking toward Tice. Shouldn't you be in school? Stay away from my dog, Tice demanded, trying to sound braver than he felt. We know you poisoned him. We're going to prove it. Something dark flickered across Spencer's face. He glanced around the empty lot, then moved with surprising speed. Before Tice could react, Spencer had grabbed him by the arm, yanking him toward a white van parked nearby. Let go! Tice struggled, but Spencer's grip was like iron. That dog was worth thousands, Spencer snarled, all pretense of friendliness gone. Premium fighting bloodline. Should have never ended up with some snot-nosed kid. He wrenched open the van's side door. Maybe your daddy will be more willing to hand him over when he knows where you are. Tice kicked and screamed as Spencer shoved him into the van. But the man was too strong. The door slammed shut, leaving Tice in darkness. Back at the clinic, Mason checked his watch again. Tice has been gone too long. I'm going to check on him. But Tice wasn't in the waiting room or the bathroom or anywhere else in the building. Mason's heart began to race. His bike's gone, he said, running back inside. Dr. Renly was already calling the police when a commotion erupted from the recovery area. Bristle, who had been resting in his kennel, was barking frantically. Before anyone could stop him, he'd somehow worked the latch loose and bolted through the clinic's front door. "Bristle, no!" Mason shouted. But the dog was already disappearing down the street, running with surprising strength for an animal that had been near death just days ago. "He knows something's wrong," Dr. Renly said, grabbing her car keys. "Call the police. I'll follow Bristle. He might lead us to Tice." Mason's hands shook as he dialed 911. "My son is missing," he said, voice cracking. "And I think I know who took him." Outside, Bristle ran with single-minded purpose, his powerful legs eating up the distance. Something was wrong with his boy, and this time, he wasn't going to let anyone hurt his family. The scent of fear and anger pulled him forward, toward the industrial district where dark memories lurked in the shadows. Dr. Renly gripped her steering wheel tightly, following the tan and black blur that was Bristle as he raced through the streets. The young dog moved with incredible purpose, nose to the ground, then up in the air, tracking something only he could detect. Her phone buzzed. "Mason, any word from the police?" "They're sending units now," Mason's voice crackled through the speaker. "I'm retracing Tice's usual routes, nothing yet." "Keep looking. Bristle's leading me toward the industrial district." She watched as the dog paused at an intersection, head lifting to catch the wind. "He seems to know exactly where he's going." Meanwhile, Mason drove through familiar streets, his heart pounding. He'd already checked the park, the school, and every place Tice liked to visit. A memory tugged at him, something Dr. Renly had mentioned about Spencer DeLange's past. He pulled over and dialed her again. "That warehouse you mentioned in your old complaints, where was it?" "The old Miller building on Industrial Way," she replied. "It used to be his training facility before the property changed hands." "Why?" "Because that's exactly where Bristle's heading, isn't it?" There was a pause. Yes, it is. I'm calling the police back. Tell them to meet us there." Inside the warehouse, Tice sat on the cold concrete floor, his hands tied behind his back with rough rope. Old dog crates lined the walls, and the musty air carried echoes of barking from long ago. Spencer paced in front of him, phone in hand. "Your dad will be looking for you by now," Spencer said, his polished manner completely gone. "When he calls, you're going to tell him you're safe, but you won't be going home without that dog." "Why?" Tice demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. "Why do you want Bristle so badly?" Spencer's face twisted into an ugly smile. "That pup comes from champion fighting stock. His mother was undefeated. His father killed 3 dogs in the ring before someone got lucky." He crouched down to Tice's level. "He was supposed to be my next star, but someone got soft and let him escape before his first match. Ended up in that shelter where your daddy found him." Tice felt sick. "Bristle's not like that. He's gentle. He's good." "Good?" Spencer laughed. "There's no good or bad in it, kid. There's just winning and losing. And that dog, he was born to win." "I won't help you hurt him," Tice said firmly, though tears pricked at his eyes. "I don't care what you do to me." Brave words. Spencer stood up, checking his phone again. "Let's see how you feel after a few hours in the dark." The sun was setting when Bristle finally stopped running. He stood before the abandoned warehouse, hackles raised. Through the gathering darkness, Dr. Renly could see police cars approaching silently, their lights off. Mason's truck pulled up beside her. "They're here," she whispered as Mason joined her. "But we need to wait for—" A sharp bark cut through the evening air. Bristle had caught Tice's scent stronger now, and nothing would hold him back. He darted toward a broken window, his powerful body easily clearing the opening. Inside, Tice's head snapped up at the familiar sound. Spencer cursed, reaching for something in his jacket. But before he could act, a tan and black missile crashed through the shadows, teeth bared and eyes blazing with protective fury. Bristle planted himself between Tice and Spencer, his normally gentle demeanor transformed into something fierce and primal. But this wasn't the killer Spencer had tried to create. This was a loyal friend defending someone he loved. "Good boy," Tice whispered, tears of relief streaming down his face. "Good boy, Bristle." In the growing darkness, Bristle's low growl echoed off the warehouse walls, his muscles tensed and ready. He had found his boy, and now nothing would harm him again. Through the window came the sound of sirens, growing closer. Spencer's face contorted with rage as he realized his plan was unraveling. But Bristle held his ground, unwavering in his protection of Tice, waiting for the help he knew was coming. Spencer lunged for his jacket pocket, but Bristle was faster. The German shepherd's powerful jaws clamped down on Spencer's arm, yanking him away from the weapon. Spencer howled in pain and rage, stumbling backward as Bristle's momentum carried them both across the concrete floor. "No!" Tice screamed as Spencer kicked out, catching Bristle in the ribs. The dog released his grip, but immediately circled back, placing himself between Spencer and Tice. Taking advantage of the chaos, Tice twisted his wrists against the rope. The rough fibers bit into his skin, but he could feel them starting to loosen. Spencer had tied them hastily, more focused on making calls than securing his captive properly. Spencer scrambled to his feet, blood dripping from the bite on his arm. His polished facade had completely crumbled, replaced by something wild and dangerous. "You stupid mutt!" he snarled, finally managing to pull something from his jacket, a heavy metal baton that glinted in the dim light. "Should have put you down when I had the chance." Bristle's ears flattened against his head, his teeth bared in a fierce snarl. When Spencer swung the baton, Bristle ducked and lunged again, this time catching Spencer's leg. But Spencer was ready. The baton came down hard on Bristle's shoulder with a sickening crack. Bristle yelped in pain but didn't retreat. Blood matted his tan and black fur where the baton had split the skin, but his eyes never left Spencer. This wasn't about fighting for sport or proving strength. This was about protecting someone he loved. "Leave him alone!" Tice shouted, working his hands free at last. The rope fell away and he stumbled to his feet, his wrists raw and bleeding. Spencer swung again, catching Bristle's side. The young dog staggered, but remained standing, his breathing labored. When Spencer raised the baton for another strike, Tice did the only thing he could think of. He threw himself over Bristle's body. "Get out of the way, kid," Spencer growled, his face twisted with fury. "No," Tice said firmly, wrapping his arms around Bristle's neck. He could feel his dog's heart racing, feel the tremors of pain running through the powerful body. "I won't let you hurt him anymore." Suddenly, the warehouse doors burst open. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness as police officers poured in, guns drawn. Mason's voice rang out. "Tice!" Spencer turned to run, heading for a back exit. But Bristle, despite his injuries, found one last surge of strength. He broke free from Tice's embrace and launched himself at Spencer's retreating form. The impact sent them both crashing to the ground. Spencer's baton clattered across the concrete as Bristle pinned him down, teeth bared inches from his throat. Blood dripped from Bristle's wounds onto Spencer's shirt, but the dog held firm, growling deep in his chest. "Don't move!" an officer shouted, training his weapon on Spencer. "Hands where we can see them!" Mason rushed to Tice, gathering his son in his arms. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" "I'm fine," Tice said, his voice shaking. "But Bristle, he's hurt bad, Dad. Spencer hit him with that thing." He pointed to the abandoned baton. Two officers pulled Spencer's hands behind his back, cuffing him, while others kept their weapons trained on him. As soon as the handcuffs clicked shut, Bristle released his hold and tried to walk back to Tice. But his injuries were too severe. His legs buckled and he collapsed onto his side. "Bristle!" Tice broke free from his father's arms and ran to his dog. He fell to his knees beside the injured animal, tears streaming down his face. "Stay with me, boy. Please stay with me." Dr. Renly pushed through the crowd of officers, her medical bag in hand. She knelt beside Bristle, her experienced hands moving quickly over his body. Multiple contusions, possible fracture to the shoulder, she muttered, her face grim. We need to get him to the clinic right away. Mason stepped forward. I'll carry him to your car. Careful, Dr. Renly warned as Mason gently lifted Bristle's limp form. That shoulder's badly damaged. Bristle whimpered softly, but didn't struggle as Mason cradled him. His eyes, though clouded with pain, remained fixed on Tice. Even now, he seemed more concerned with his boy's safety than his own injuries. You're going to be okay, Tice whispered, walking alongside as they carried Bristle out. You saved me. Now I'm going to save you. Behind them, officers led Spencer away in handcuffs, reading him his rights. The dog trainer's pristine appearance was gone. His clothes were torn and bloody, his carefully styled hair wild. But worse was the look in his eyes as he watched Bristle being carried out. A cold, calculating anger that suggested this wasn't over. Tice climbed into the back seat of Dr. Renly's car, letting Bristle's head rest in his lap. The dog's breathing was shallow and rapid, his fur matted with blood. But his tail managed a weak thump against the seat when Tice stroked his head. Stay with me, Tice pleaded softly as Dr. Renly started the engine. You're my hero, Bristle. My brave, good boy. Please, stay with me. Mason followed in his truck as they sped through the darkening streets toward the clinic, emergency lights flashing. In the back seat, Tice held his faithful friend close, whispering prayers and promises, while Bristle fought to keep his eyes open, determined to stay strong for the boy he loved. The clinic's lights blazed ahead like a beacon of hope, but Bristle's breathing was growing more labored with each passing minute. As they pulled into the parking lot, his eyes finally closed, his massive body going still in Tice's arms. Hurry, Tice cried out, his voice breaking. Please, Dr. Renly, hurry! The veterinarian was already throwing open her door, ready to fight for the brave dog who had risked everything to save his boy. The night was far from over, and Bristle's greatest battle was just beginning. The emergency room at Renly Animal Hospital buzzed with controlled urgency. Dr. Renly barked orders as her team lifted Bristle's limp form onto the examination table. Blood-stained towels littered the floor while machines beeped steadily, monitoring the brave dog's vital signs. His shoulder's completely shattered, Dr. Renly announced, studying the x-rays. Multiple fractures to the ribs, and there's internal bleeding we need to address immediately. Tice stood pressed against the wall, his face pale and tear-streaked. When a nurse tried to guide him to the waiting room, he shook his head firmly. I'm not leaving him. Dr. Renly glanced up from her work, her eyes softening despite the tension. Let him stay, she said. Bristle fights harder when Tice is near. Mason watched from the doorway, his own eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion and worry. His phone buzzed constantly with updates from the police. They'd found documentation at the warehouse, leads to other properties, names of people involved in Spencer's operation. But right now, none of that mattered as much as the steady rise and fall of Bristle's chest. Hours crawled by. The emergency team worked tirelessly, their scrubs splattered with blood as they fought to repair the damage from Spencer's brutal attack. Tice never moved from his spot, whispering encouragement whenever Bristle's vitals wavered. Come on, boy, he'd murmur. You're so strong. You can do this. Around midnight, Detective Sarah Chen arrived at the clinic, her notebook in hand. She spoke quietly with Mason in the hallway while Tice remained glued to Bristle's side. We've uncovered quite a network, she explained. Spencer DeLange was just the tip of the iceberg. Bank records, breeding documents, fighting schedules. It spans 3 states. We've already made 4 more arrests, and there are more coming. Mason ran a hand through his hair. All because of a puppy who wouldn't back down. Sometimes the smallest voices tell the biggest truths, Detective Chen said, glancing through the window at Bristle. If we'd listened to Dr. Renly's reports years ago, who knows how many dogs we could have saved. Inside the treatment room, Dr. Renly finally stepped back from the table, peeling off her bloody gloves. He's stabilized, she announced. The next 24 hours will be critical, but he's fighting hard. Tice pressed his forehead against Bristle's uninjured shoulder, careful to avoid the bandages and tubes. "Thank you," he whispered, both to the doctor and to his brave friend. Mason approached Dr. Renly as she updated Bristle's charts. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "When you stopped the euthanasia, when you trusted Bristle's reaction, I thought you were just being kind, giving Tice false hope. But you saw something we all missed." She shook her head. "Animals speak to us in their own way. Sometimes we just need to listen more carefully." She glanced at Tice, who had pulled a chair next to Bristle's bed and was gently stroking his ear. "Your son never stopped listening. That's what saved Bristle's life. Twice now." As the night shifted toward dawn, the emergency room gradually quieted. The other staff went home, leaving Dr. Renly to monitor Bristle's recovery. Mason dozed in a waiting room chair, while Detective Chen coordinated with other precincts, building their case against Spencer's fighting ring. Tice remained awake, holding vigil beside his dog. Dr. Renly brought him a blanket and some hot chocolate, settling into a chair beside him. "Can I tell you something?" she asked softly. Tice nodded, his eyes never leaving Bristle's face. "Years ago, I tried to expose what people like Spencer were doing. I filed reports, gathered evidence, begged people to investigate, but nobody would listen," she sighed. "After a while, I started to think maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was seeing problems that weren't there." "But you weren't wrong," Tice said. "No, I wasn't. And neither was Bristle when he growled at that vet tech, even though everyone thought he was just being aggressive." She smiled gently. "Sometimes the world gives up on someone, or something, too quickly. They make assumptions, or they're too busy to look deeper. But it only takes one person willing to listen, to trust their instincts, to change everything." Tice considered this, his hand resting lightly on Bristle's good shoulder. "Like how you listened to Bristle?" "Like how you listened to your heart when you refused to give up on him," she corrected. "That's what gave me the courage to trust my instincts again." On the table, Bristle's tail thumped weakly against the metal surface. His eyes fluttered open, focusing immediately on Tice's face. Despite the pain medication, despite his injuries, his first concern was still his boy. "Hey, buddy," Tice whispered, tears spilling down his cheeks. "I knew you'd come back to me." Dr. Renly checked Bristle's vitals, nodding in satisfaction. "His numbers are improving. The surgery sites are clean. No signs of infection." She scratched behind Bristle's ear. "You're quite the fighter, aren't you?" Mason appeared in the doorway, his phone in hand. "That was Detective Chen," he said. "They've arrested 2 more people connected to Spencer's operation. They found records going back 5 years, dozens of dogs, hundreds of thousands of dollars in illegal betting." "All those dogs," Dr. Renly murmured. "All those reports I filed." "They're reopening every one of them," Mason assured her. "Chen says your documentation will be crucial to their investigation. Nothing you did was wasted. It was just waiting for the right moment." Bristle whined softly, trying to lift his head toward Tice. The boy carefully leaned down, letting his dog's tongue brush his cheek. "Easy, boy," Dr. Renly cautioned. "You've got a lot of healing to do before you're back to normal." But looking at the love shining in both Bristle's and Tice's eyes, at the unshakable bond between them, she knew that normal had never been the right word for this extraordinary pair. They had something rare and precious, the kind of trust that could overcome any obstacle, expose any truth, and heal any wound. As morning light began to filter through the clinic windows, Bristle's vital signs continued to strengthen. The worst was behind them, and justice was finally catching up to those who had tried to destroy this beautiful friendship. In the quiet of the recovery room, surrounded by the people who had never stopped believing in him, a brave dog who had been bred for violence but chose love instead, rested peacefully, secure in the knowledge that he was exactly where he belonged. 6 weeks after the warehouse incident, autumn painted the town in warm colors. Bristle trotted confidently beside Tice on their morning walk, his stride strong and sure. Only a slight favoring of his left shoulder hinted at the ordeal he'd survived. "Looking good, Bristle," called Mrs. Chen from her front porch. She wasn't just being neighborly. As the lead detective on Spencer's case, she'd watched the German Shepherd's recovery closely. "Big day at the courthouse tomorrow." Tice waved back, his hand automatically reaching down to scratch behind Bristle's ears. The upcoming trial had been the talk of the town for weeks. Spencer DeLange and 8 of his associates would face multiple charges related to animal cruelty, illegal gambling, and, in Spencer's case, kidnapping. "Ready for your big moment, boy?" Tice asked as they rounded the corner toward home. Bristle's tail wagged in response, his dark eyes bright with intelligence. At the house, Mason was hanging up the phone as they entered. "That was Dr. Renly," he announced, smiling. "The city council's making it official. They're naming her head of the new Animal Protection Task Force." "Really?" Tice's face lit up. "That's awesome." "About time," Mason agreed, heading to the kitchen to start breakfast. 20 years of filing reports, never giving up. She deserves this recognition." Tice unclipped Bristle's leash and watched him pad over to his water bowl. The dog moved with the same grace he'd always had, though the scars under his thick fur told a story of courage and survival. The emergency surgery had saved his life, but it was his determination and Dr. Renly's dedication that had brought him back to full strength. "The ceremony's next week," Mason continued, cracking eggs into a bowl. "They want Bristle to be there too. Seems fitting, since he's the one who broke the case wide open." Bristle's ears perked up at his name, making both father and son laugh. The sound echoed naturally through the kitchen, something that would have seemed impossible just months ago, when grief had kept their home quiet and heavy. "You know," Mason said, his voice growing thoughtful, "your mom would be so proud of how you handled everything. Standing up to Spencer, never giving up on Bristle. That took real courage, son." Tice felt his throat tighten, but not with the raw pain that had once accompanied any mention of his mother. "I just did what she would have done," he said softly. "She always said to fight for what's right, even when it's scary." Mason nodded, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Speaking of fighting for what's right, I've got something to show you after breakfast. I've been waiting for the right moment." Curiosity sparked in Tice's eyes, but he knew better than to press. His father had that special look, the one that meant something important was coming. They ate quickly, Bristle lounging between their chairs. The morning sun streamed through the windows, catching the silver threads in Mason's hair and highlighting the healthy shine of Bristle's coat. When the plates were cleared, Mason disappeared into his home office. "Close your eyes," he called out. Tice complied, feeling Bristle shift closer to his leg. There was the sound of papers rustling, then footsteps approaching. "Okay, open them." In Mason's hands was an official-looking document, embossed with gold seals and formal signatures. Tice leaned forward, reading slowly. "Certificate of Adoption." His voice trailed off as understanding dawned. "It's all legal now," Mason explained, his voice warm. "No more rescue status, no more temporary papers. Bristle is officially permanently part of the Langford family." Tice's hands shook slightly as he took the certificate. Bristle pressed against his leg as if sensing the emotion of the moment. "Read the name," Mason encouraged gently. "Bristle Hope Langford," Tice read aloud, tears welling in his eyes. "You gave him Mom's maiden name?" Mason nodded, kneeling down to embrace both his son and their dog. "Seemed right. Hope is what he gave us when we needed it most. And now no one can ever question where he belongs." Bristle wormed his way between them, offering gentle licks to both their faces. His tail wagged with such force his whole body wiggled, making them laugh through their tears. "We're going to frame it," Mason declared, standing up. "Right next to Mom's picture in the living room. What do you think?" But Tice couldn't speak. He was on his knees, arms wrapped around Bristle's neck, face buried in the thick fur that still smelled faintly of sunshine from their morning walk. The dog stood perfectly still, allowing his boy this moment, offering the steady comfort that had become as natural as breathing between them. When Tice finally looked up, his eyes were clear and bright. "We did it, boy," he whispered. "We're really family now. Forever." Bristle's response was to gently take the sleeve of Tice's shirt between his teeth, his favorite gesture of affection, and tug him toward the living room. They followed, Mason carrying the precious certificate. Together, they cleared a space on the wall. The photograph of Tice's mother smiled down at them, her eyes seeming to sparkle with approval as Mason carefully hung Bristle's adoption papers beside her. "Perfect," Mason said softly. And it was. The morning light caught the gold seals, making them shine like promises kept. Bristle sat between father and son, his head held high, every inch the noble protector he'd proven himself to be. In his dark eyes was the same unwavering loyalty that had given him the strength to save Tice, to survive his injuries, to transform from a dog bred for violence into a symbol of love's power to heal and change. The certificate made it official, but the truth was, Bristle had been family from the first moment he'd curled up beside a grieving boy and decided to stay. Through tears and laughter, danger and triumph, he'd shown them all what it meant to be brave, to be faithful, to be home. As they stood together, admiring the framed testament to their journey, Bristle's tail wagged contentedly. Tomorrow would bring the trial, next week the ceremony honoring Dr. Renly's years of dedication. But right now, in this quiet moment of belonging, everything that mattered most in the world was right here, bound together by love that had been tested by fire and emerged unshakable. Thank you for watching. If even one moment stayed with you, don't forget to subscribe. I'll be here tomorrow with another story that speaks to the heart.